Hello, crafty friends, and welcome to Late Night Card Making with me, Revati. Today, we are going to create a very clean and simple Get Well Soon card using the Clever Fox stamp and stencil combo. Now, this one is a new release product by Simon. They just came out with their Shine On release, and I absolutely love products in the release. And this one really caught my eye because I have some, say, dogs and cats and some other critters, but I don't have a fox stamp. And this one is really pretty and adorable. It has four fox and some fun sentiments. We have "You are so clever," "Hey Foxy." You can pair this with "Happy birthday" or "Wishing you a speedy recovery." And we also have a thoughtful hello. There are two little stars hearts included, which you can add on your cards. And if you see, these are numbered. We have one, two, three, and four. That's because they come with coordinating stencils. Yes, you heard me right. They have stencils. Now, these are layering stencils, so each fox can be colored or ink blended with these stencils, making the coloring so much more easier. As much as I love my alcohol markers, I do love having coordinating stencils, especially something like this, which is more of a layering stencil. So each of these stencils are marked. We have, or if you can see this, here we have one. So this particular stencil will color all the parts for fox number one. And if you see it also etched, we have for part one, which is a medium layer. Then you have coloring the inner. Let's see. I don't think it's very visible here on camera, but this here, if you look closely, there is something etched which says inner ear, then again inner ear, outer ear. So every part of the body of our fox can be colored using these layering stencils. So we have four different stencils for four different images. For our card today, I'll be using this little guy along with wishing you a speedy recovery. We'll be creating a get well soon card, and this is stencil number four, which lines up perfectly with our little fox. Okay, so let's get started. I will start by stamping my image and our sentiment onto a piece of white cardstock pattern. Now this one is A2 size. I'll first do all the stamping, ink blending, and then we will go ahead and trim it out, or let's see how uh, if we need a border or an edge. First, I will do all the stamping and coloring. Also note that this also comes with coordinating dies, which I'm not sure if they cut out the sentiments, but they do cut out these images. So I will not be using the die today. I'm just using the stamp and stencil combo. You can definitely skip the stencils and use your alcohol markers or watercolors to color in these images, but uh, I'll show you one with the stencil. I will keep these aside, and before we get started with the stenciling, I will go ahead and stamp my little fox and the sentiment onto my card panel. So here we are. I'll bring my stamp wheel and I will place this on the edge. And yes, I will be heat embossing the image. So before I place my images in place, what I'm going to do is I'll just place my grid transparency sheet because I will also be stamping the sentiment along with the fox. So I just want everything to be a little more aligned. So I'll stamp my fox somewhere over here as if he's like, running across the street, or let's And for my sentiment, I thought I would do it on the lower part. Right. I'll make sure everything is perfectly aligned before I go ahead and add any of that stamping. We will be trimming this panel a little once we are done with all of the stamping and the ink blending through the stencil. That looks pretty straight to me. Just pick it up with our stamp platform. I don't want to lose this. I'll first keep this aside. All right. Now I have not used this particular stamp, so I'll just wipe it with my finger. And before I stamp the image, I will use some anti-static powder and just brush it on the paper. Now to stamp my image, I am using the VersaFine Clear Nocturne ink. This is by Simon. This is a pigment ink, so it'll stay wet for quite some time and you'll get enough time to add your embossing powder over it. There we go. I'll just add my fox right there. I guess I missed his little tiny ears. Well, you don't really need to stamp it again, but I just missed a little bit of that ear, so that's the reason I'm stamping it again. But this is a really pigmented ink and you wouldn't need to stamp it again. Just once would be enough. Right. That looks amazing. I will set this aside and bring in my paper to catch all of that embossing powder. So I'm using Simon's Clear Embossing Powder. This is a fine detail powder. It gives a beautiful shine to your stamped image. What I like to do is just tap it before pouring everything down. So that way I know there's embossing powder all over the image. I just like to tap the panel just so that if there's any stray embossing powder there, that we can catch that. I'll just wipe my work surface before I heat set the embossing powder. I'll make sure my heat tool is really nice and hot before I heat set this so that the paper does not warp a lot. I'll start from the back of the panel and just follow the image and heat it up. And then I'll come in front and heat set all of this beautiful black embossing. I absolutely love the shine on this. Now, If you're not using pigmented, you could definitely go in for your dye inks. That way you don't have to worry about the ink smudging. But I always like to add some shine on my images. So that's the reason I like to use my pigment ink instead of dye ink. And then that way we can get this beautiful glossy shine on our. I I don't think the camera is picking it up, but it looks absolutely stunning. I think there's a little bit that powder that needs to be melted there. So I'll give this panel a few seconds to cool down, because if you if you add ink or add any kind of blending right away, it might smudge. So you can just flicker it around so that it cools down. While that's done, I just wanted to show you guys the stencil packaging. Now this one has the image of the fox and all the colors that need to be done. So it's quite simple, and you can figure out what color you need on your fox. So I will be using this little guy. I'll keep these aside, and you don't have to find the exact shade, but I know I'm gonna go with oranges or little brick colors. So that's why I like to keep these the back panel handy, so that I know what colors I'm using. Now this one, I have never really used this particular uh, stencil. I did create a card using these two foxes. I don't have the card right now, but I do have an image on my Instagram profile where I created a card using these little guys and the sentiment that says, "You're clever." So we will be creating this one. So let's see how this works. So looks like this is just lining it up. Okay, let's just try this. All right. So we will start with the medium part, which is this almost burnt orange part. So what I'm going to do is I will place this on my ultra sticky mat. So the panel did warp a little, but when you go to place it on your ultra sticky mat, it should do the trick. Okay. So now I'll just go ahead and line this stencil right there. And I'll make sure I'll cover the edges, because I am not going to die cut this, and this will be my final panel. So I'll just make sure everything is in place. Nothing fancy, I'm just using little post-it notes. So we will bring in some oranges, some browns, and add color and shading to this one. So let me start with, say, nutmeg, which is a very light brown shade, and start with that. So just to test it out how that color would look, I will just take a rough piece, and this looks almost like a burnt orange and uh, brown, a light brown. So let's do that first. I'll go in very small, light circular motions. I'm not adding any harsh ink blending. What I like to do is tap my brush, and then instead of going directly into the image, I will first start over the stencil and then bring it down. I hope that makes sense. So again, I will do that. So you'll see there's a lot of concentration of color on top as compared to the lower part of the fox. Now this is more of a brown than like a deep orange. So what I'm going to do next is bring in a little bit of orange. So I will be using sherbet, and before I ink blend the orange, I will just wipe my stencil because I don't want any of that brown on my blending brush. So here I have sherbet, and I will just, it's not a lot of color here, but still it'll tone down the brown. So now it's all about building up the color more than like, because I don't have the same exact shade, and I will try my best to get close to that shade. So let's try a little bit of Sangria, which is almost like a deep, rich pink. Let's try that. If I were to show you here, so this is what Sangria looks like. So what I'm going to do is just bring in that color to get almost a maroon effect. All right. Last but not the least, to deepen that beautiful brown, I will bring in allspice. Allspice is that deep, rich brown. So I will bring in that just to the tips. I'm not bringing it towards the lower end of our fox. That's pretty much it. The first layer of our fox is done. I'll just peel out the stencil, and I absolutely love how this little guy turned out. I love the ombre effect that this has. Next, we will work on the paws and the ears. I'll just clean the stencil and place this right back over here. Okay. So now, according to the stencil, it's almost like a dark chocolate brown, or maybe even say woodsy. Let's try this ink. So to show you how woodsy looks, this is woodsy, almost like a transition between brown and black. So again, I will cover anything that's not required there. Probably one more just here, just in case. Should be good. There you go. That looks amazing. And then I'm not sure if the stencil is not right, or I need color for these areas. So let's see if it's part of any other stencil, or if not, I'll just use my alcohol markers to color it in. Looks like we'll just go ahead and use our alcohol markers, or in this case, you could even leave it as is white, because here it shows white. We'll just add slightest bit of shading on the ears. Let's see. So I will bring in my alcohol markers. Okay, this is too close to the camera. This is Honolulu B set. This has 168 colors. So I absolutely love these markers. So this is what it looks like. So we will pick up some light grays and some very subtle pink for the ear. So let me see. I did swatch them out. So these are the colors that are included. We will go with a very light gray for the lower part of the belly and the tip of the tail. So let me bring out my colors, which is 10. And for the pink, I might use the lightest shade of pink, maybe YR. So the colors that I'm going to use is WG. So we have WG01, WG10, and YR33. So not a lot of shading here, just the slightest bit, just to add that little bit of texture on the lower side of our little fox. I can take this out of my sticky mat and then add just the lightest bit of shading. You wouldn't even notice it, that light. This tail. Okay. And now that light subtle pink for the ear. So that's our little fox. Isn't he adorable? Okay. So now I plan on trimming this panel down, and let me see, do we add color to this or just leave it white? Mm, let's first cut it out and then we can see. So to cut out the panel, I am using the Sparkler Scallop frame die, and this is, I think, the previous release. Um, this creates beautiful frames. So I will be using this one maybe, or the bigger one. Okay, let's use this frame right there, and I'll just hold it with some washi tape. Let me just go ahead and die cut this. So there we go. This is a very clean and simple card. There's not a lot of stuff happening around. So my idea is to place this onto a white cut base, just like that. So we can keep it clean and simple or add some green and blue for the sky and the grass area. So let's add the lightest bit of green and blue on top. So I will use Field, which is a very beautiful green that I have. This is something that I use for all the greenery or the foliage on my cards. So I am going to be very light with the green, and I'm not going to cover or have like a fixed border around the edge. I just lightly blend the lower part of this panel with this beautiful green, and probably like halfway to the fox. And since I'm adding like the lightest touch, I'm not worried about the color getting onto the fox. It'll barely show. So that's fine. All right. Next for our sky. Okay, let's just add a little bit here as well. Next for our sky, instead of blues, I usually like to use some light teal. So I'm using surf. Another option would be marine. So either one of these, I usually prefer slightest bit of teal on the sky. So this is the mid tone. And again, I'm not bringing it all the way towards the bottom of the panel. I'll just keep it a little on top. It's only to add the slightest bit of color and not overdo it. So, so you could definitely add some clouds or a grassy border along the edge. Slightest bit color here as well in the center, and I can make this a little bit splotchy because, well, the sky has clouds and it doesn't look perfectly blue unless it's like a bright sunny day. So okay, this will give like a little bit of that cloudy effect, and that's it. So if I bring this onto the panel, this looks a lot better. Okay, now I will go ahead and pop this panel using some foam tape. So here I have this was a very clean and simple, easy to, you know, recreate and even mass produce. You could use any of those images on the stamp and like mix and match it with the sentiments and create your own little set of fox theme cards. So now how I like to, I'll just wipe the surface before I go ahead and place my panel down. I don't want any of that ink. So what I'm going to do is I'll just hold the panel with some washi tape so that it doesn't move or open up. I personally don't like adding washi tape inside because sometimes it gets stuck. This is perfect for me. This is what works for me. I will carefully adhere this onto my panel. There we go. And before we call this card done, let's add some faux splatters. For that, let me see. I like to use a black gel pen. So here is my black gel pen. I'll just add a few dots here and there so that it mimics faux splattering. Now, if you wanted, you could definitely add splatter using watercolors or even the Simon's Positively Perfect splatter medium. But then I want to keep it really clean and simple and not add a lot of splatter because this little guy is going to be the main focal point of our card. So I don't want that focus to go on like over splattering the card. Well, you could leave it as is also, but well, my cards, I kind of feel like they're incomplete without that little bit of splattering. So this is a very controlled way to do that. Now, what I'll do is, since my fox is almost diagonal towards the side and we have a sentiment here, I will add my splattering in this direction around my fox. So for that, what I do is randomly scatter some dots, big or small, doesn't really matter because when you actually go to splatter, you have no control over those. So it doesn't really matter where those dots are. We will just add a little bit of dots here and there. Right? Couple of dots here and one or two over here. You could also use your black alcohol marker to do this. That works fine too. So just that slightest hint of splattering. So this feels a lot more natural, but it is controlled. So it doesn't really have to be a big splatter medium. So that's about it. So I have splatters just around my focal point image and my sentiment, so it's not overpowering the design. And I'll keep rest of the card pretty simple because this is almost say a get well soon card, and cards like sympathy cards or get well soon, or sometimes I like to have them a little bit clean and simple without any bling, without a lot of splatter, without any sparkle or sequences, because well, some cards deserve to be a little clean and simple, and this is one example of that. So you can definitely go ahead and stamp a couple of these images and create your own little fox theme card set. And I absolutely love this beautiful stamp set. It has again 4 little images with 2 hearts, and we have sentiments, we have the wishing you a speedy recovery. We have You're So Clever, a thoughtful hello, Hey Foxy, which can be paired with the happy birthday or Hey Foxy, you're so clever. Or you can pretty much pair this with even Hey Foxy, sending you a thoughtful hello, or Hey Foxy, wishing you speedy recovery. So this is a beautiful set, and if you love creating cards using little critters, this is something that I would definitely recommend. Again, this comes with coordinating stencils and die sets. And you could also cut this out and maybe put an action wobble and make this little guy wobbly. So it's like almost he's running across the field, wishing you a speedy recovery. Well, that's it for today's video. It's really a short, quick and easy card making video. I will leave links to all the products that I used, including all of the inks that we used in the description box below. And also link to the new Shine On release. Go check it out. It's a really amazing, fun release. Simon also has a blog hop, and there'll be an Instagram hop, and you can get some fun prizes. And also note that all of these links that I'll be adding in the description box are affiliate links, which means that if you shop using one of my links, I'll get a small commission at the. Well, thank you again for joining me today. Until next time, stay safe. Bye bye.